Marcus Johnson, 19 years old, a college student with a bright future, 4.0 GPA, full scholarship, biochemistry major. His family was counting on him. 4 younger siblings looked up to him as a role model. And today, he stood in the courtroom, holding a small plastic bag. Inside, 3 grams of marijuana. 1 mistake. 1 moment of weakness. And now, everything, his entire future, depended on the outcome of this moment. When Frank Caprio opened the file, he saw just another drug case. But that day was the turning point of a young man's life. Marcus's hands were trembling. His father was gone, abandoned them 12 years ago. His mother worked 2 jobs, slept 4 hours a night, trying to cover Marcus's college expenses. And Marcus had earned a full scholarship. For his family, for his siblings, for his mother's tears. But now, because of 1 mistake, everything could be lost. When Frank opened the file, it looked like a standard drug offense. Small amount of marijuana possession, personal use, first offense, age 19. Clear, simple, there's a sentencing protocol, apply it, move on. But when he looked at Marcus's file, the documents told him a different story. Acceptance letter, Providence University, Biochemistry department, full scholarship, $60,000 annual value. Transcript, high school senior year, 4.0 GPA, honor roll, 3 consecutive years. Teacher recommendations, exceptional student, future doctor, passion for community service. And then, at the bottom, a small note, scholarship terms. Any criminal record will result in immediate scholarship revocation. Frank stopped. He read the file again. Marcus was only 19 years old, at the beginning of his life, but this criminal record would cost him his scholarship. Lose the scholarship, he'd drop out. Drop out, his future would be gone. Mr. Johnson, Frank said, his voice echoing in the courtroom, but somehow sad, almost paternal. Do you know why you're here today? Marcus bowed his head. Yes, Your Honor, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. 3 grams of marijuana, personal use, first offense. But you're a full scholarship student, 4.0 average. Why? This is exactly when Marcus broke down. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. He brought his hands to his face. His shoulders shook. He was 19, but at that moment, he looked like a child. Scared, remorseful, helpless. Your Honor, he said, his voice breaking, I was stupid. I was hanging out with friends. They were drinking and I just wanted to try it, first time. And the police came. And now everything's over. Frank leaned forward. Marcus, will you lose your scholarship? Marcus lifted his head. His eyes were bright red. Yes, it says in the scholarship terms, any criminal record, automatic revocation. If I lose my scholarship, I can't continue school. My family, my mother, she's raising 4 kids alone. My father's gone. I'm the first college student in my family. My siblings are watching me. If I fail, they'll lose hope too. The courtroom was silent. There were 100 people there, but no sound. A young man's future depended on the outcome of this moment. Marcus, Frank asked carefully, are you remorseful? Your Honor, I'm so sorry. I wish I could take it back. I wish I'd stayed home that night. I wish I'd said no to my friends. But now it's too late. I made a mistake, and now my life is over. Frank's expression changed. It was a mixture of pain, anger, and disappointment. But not at Marcus, at the system. You haven't seen the most shocking part yet. Frank closed the file, removed his glasses, and took a deep breath. Then, slowly, he stood up in the middle of the courtroom and began to speak. But this wasn't a normal court speech. This was a rebellion. Marcus, I'm going to tell you something. And this is not just for you, but for everyone in this room, everyone in this country. The courtroom paid attention. Frank Caprio, in his 25-year career, was about to say something he'd never said before. This system is broken. A 19-year-old young man loses his entire future over 3 grams of marijuana. One mistake. First offense. And the punishment? The end of his life. Is this fair? The prosecutor leaned forward. Your Honor, the law is clear. The law is clear, Frank interrupted, his voice sharp. But the law isn't always just. Marcus, what clubs are you in at high school? Marcus was surprised. I'm in Science Olympiad and the Community Service Club. Every week I volunteer at the homeless shelter. How many hours? 10 hours a week, Your Honor. Frank turned to the room. Did you hear that? This young man maintains a 4.0 average, has a full scholarship, volunteers 10 hours a week, helps the homeless. And one night, he made a mistake. He tried marijuana. Didn't sell it, didn't distribute it, tried it. And now the punishment: lose his scholarship, drop out of school, destroy his future. Wait a minute. Frank's not done yet. Frank returned to the podium and held up a document. Marcus's acceptance letter. Providence University Biochemistry Department. This school costs $60,000 a year. They gave Marcus a full scholarship. Why? Because he's brilliant. Because he's hardworking. Because he serves the community. Because he's the future. But this little plastic bag, Frank held up the small evidence bag. 3 grams of marijuana, is it worth more than Marcus's future? Court clerk Linda had worked with Frank for 25 years and had never seen him this angry. But this wasn't personal anger. This was justice anger. Your Honor, the prosecutor stood up. I understand, but the law, Frank almost shouted. I've been a judge for 25 years. I know the law, but what is the spirit of the law? To punish or to rehabilitate? How does imprisoning Marcus, destroying Marcus, serve society? The prosecutor fell silent. Frank was right, and everyone knew it. Marcus, Frank turned to the young man, I'm going to ask you a question, and be honest. Will you use marijuana again? Marcus, eyes full. No, Your Honor. Never. This is the biggest mistake of my life. I'll never touch it again. Why? Because I saw how big the consequences of one mistake can be. I disappointed my mother. I embarrassed my siblings, and I almost destroyed my future. This lesson is enough. I'll never forget it. Frank nodded. And then he did something no one expected. You won't believe this, but here's where the real surprise comes. Frank turned to the court clerk. Linda, put on record. In the case of Marcus Johnson, the court makes this decision. Criminal record will be expunged. The courtroom froze in shock. Criminal record expunged? But how? The condition is this, Frank continued. Marcus Johnson will perform 200 hours of community service. He'll volunteer at a drug addiction center. He'll tell young people about drug dangers. And for 6 months, he'll report to court every month. If Marcus fulfills these conditions, after 6 months, the criminal record will be completely expunged. His file will be clean. His scholarship will continue. His future will be protected. Marcus looked at Frank in disbelief. Your Honor, is this real? Yes, Marcus, but listen to me. This isn't a second chance. This is your last chance. If you make a mistake again, the punishment will be double. Understand? Yes, Your Honor, thank you. I won't disappoint you. I promise. Frank stood up and slowly walked to Marcus in the middle of the courtroom, in front of everyone, and placed his hand on Marcus's shoulder. Marcus, you're a brilliant young man. You have a future. But the future isn't built with intelligence alone. It's built with character. Today you made a mistake. But this mistake doesn't define you. You're going to learn from this mistake, and you'll become a stronger, wiser, better person. Understand? Marcus was crying. Yes, Your Honor, I understand. But the real shock came after court ended. Marcus's mother was waiting outside the courthouse. LaShonda Johnson, 42 years old, a mother working 2 jobs. Tired face, worried eyes. When her son came out, she ran and hugged him. "Marcus, what happened? Did we lose the scholarship?" Marcus was crying, but this time from happiness. "No, Mom. No, the Judge Caprio, he gave me a chance. The record will be expunged. The scholarship continues. I can go to school." LaShonda fell to her knees. Right there, outside the courthouse, on the ground, and cried. For 12 years, she'd been raising 4 kids alone. Every day, waking at 5 a.m., going to bed at 11 p.m. Never took a vacation, never rested. Everything for her children. And today, Marcus almost lost everything. "God," LaShonda said, looking up. "God, thank you. And Judge Caprio, please protect him. He's an angel." Marcus helped his mother up. "Mom, I promise you, I'll never make a mistake again. I'll make you proud. I'll become a doctor, and I'll work to take care of you and my siblings, I promise." But the story doesn't end here. Because Frank Caprio that day didn't just start a decision, he started a movement. After court ended, Frank returned to his office and wrote a letter to the State Education Board. "Dear Chairman, today in my courtroom, I saw a brilliant 19-year-old young man, 4.0 average, full scholarship, bright future. But one night, he made a mistake. 3 grams of marijuana, first offense, and the punishment? Lose his scholarship, destroy his future. This is unacceptable. A young person works hard for 18 years, gets good grades, serves the community, and one mistake, a single mistake, can end their entire life. This system isn't fair. I request from the State Education Board, review scholarship terms. For first offenses, give conditional punishment instead of automatic revocation. Give young people a second chance, because one mistake doesn't define a person." After sending that letter, Frank did something else, called TV stations, local news, national news, and told the story, Marcus's story, and the story went viral. Within 3 days, Marcus's story was on national news, with the headline, "Judge Saves Scholarship Student." And in the comments section, thousands of people. "My son also made such a mistake, lost his scholarship." The system is broken. Frank Caprio is right. Young people should be given second chances. A week later, the State Education Board held a meeting and announced a new policy. First Offense Forgiveness Program. If a student commits a minor first offense and meets certain conditions, they can keep their scholarship. Marcus's story changed the law, but Marcus's journey was just beginning. 2,400 words. Rehook number 8. Marcus, after leaving court that day, lived through the hardest 200 hours of his life. Community service at the drug addiction center. Every weekend, every holiday, he was there. The first day he was scared. He saw addicts, people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, lives destroyed, families lost, no health. And it all started with a small mistake. A man told him, "Son, I was like you. 19 years old, college student, bright future. First time I tried marijuana, then more, then harder stuff. Now, I'm 35, have nothing. Lost my family, lost my job, lost my health. You're lucky. You could stop where you stopped." Marcus, at that moment, understood. Frank Caprio hadn't just given him a second chance. He'd shown him the truth. Drugs start with a small mistake, but can turn into a big tragedy. For 200 hours, Marcus talked to 47 addicts, listened to their stories, saw their pain, and learned something. Addiction doesn't happen to bad people. Addiction can happen to anyone. But if prevention is taken early, they can be saved. 6 months later, Marcus came back to the courtroom, this time not as a defendant, as a success story. "Judge Caprio," Marcus said, standing in the courtroom, "6 months ago, you gave me a second chance, and today, I'm here to report to you." Frank looked up. When he saw Marcus, he smiled. Because Marcus had changed. He'd matured. There was no longer fear in his eyes. There was determination. Marcus, did you complete the community service? Yes, Your Honor. 200 hours at the Drug Addiction Center. I talked to 47 addicts, listened to their stories, and I learned something. What was that? I learned that a mistake can seem small, but its consequences can change lives. Addiction doesn't happen in one day. It happens slowly. But if prevention is taken early, they can be saved. And I'm lucky, because you stopped me. You showed me the truth. Frank stood up, and in his hand was a document. Marcus Johnson, the court's decision. 200 hours of community service completed. 6-month reporting period with no violations. Grades, maintained 4.0 average. Scholarship, continuing. And today, the court is completely expunging the criminal record. Clean file, open future. The courtroom gave a standing ovation. A young man had earned his second chance and succeeded. Marcus approached Frank. Your Honor, I don't know how to thank you. Frank touched Marcus's shoulder. Marcus, don't thank me. Thank yourself. You earned that second chance. You worked hard, learned your lesson, and changed. Now go and become a doctor. And one day you give another young person a second chance too. But the story wasn't over yet. Because Marcus, from that day on, started doing something unexpected. When Marcus returned to college, he founded a club. Second Chance Club, a program that tells young people about drug dangers, supports students who've been given second chances. 5 people came to the first meeting, 15 to the second. A year later, 200 members. And Marcus, at every meeting, told his own story. I made a mistake at 19, 3 grams of marijuana, and I almost lost my life. But Judge Caprio gave me a second chance. And now, I'm telling you, you can make mistakes. But those mistakes don't define you. You can learn from those mistakes. 4 years later, Marcus graduated. Providence University, Biochemistry, 4.0 average, honor roll, graduation speaker. In his speech, he said, 6 years ago, I made a mistake, and that mistake could have destroyed my life. But a judge, Frank Caprio, gave me a second chance. He didn't just give me forgiveness, he gave me a lesson. He showed me that a mistake doesn't define a person, but how you respond to that mistake defines you. Today, I'm graduating. Next year, I'm starting medical school. My goal? To become a pediatrician. Because I love children, and I want to serve them, especially disadvantaged children, because I'm one of those children. I grew up in a single-parent home. I grew up in a poor neighborhood, but I had a chance. And now, I want to give that chance to others. In the courtroom, in the back row, Frank Caprio sat. He'd come secretly. No one had noticed him. And as he listened to Marcus's speech, his eyes filled with tears. This, Frank thought, is why I'm a judge, not to punish, to save. After the ceremony ended, Marcus saw Frank, ran and hugged him. Uncle Judge, Marcus said, you came. Of course I came. You're my success story. I came to hear your graduation. Marcus pulled something from his pocket. A small card. Medical school acceptance letter. Harvard Medical School, full scholarship. I got accepted. And this is because of you. Frank took the card, read it, and smiled. No, Marcus, this is because of you. I just opened the door. You walked through it. And now you're going to be a doctor. You're going to save lives. Today, Marcus Johnson is 27 years old, Harvard Medical School graduate, pediatrician at Boston Children's Hospital, and still running Second Chance Club, now nationwide, 50 campuses, 5,000 members. Every year, Marcus gives a speech to high school students, college students, young people, and always tells his story. That 3 grams of marijuana story, that court day, Frank Caprio's words. A mistake doesn't define you, but how you respond to that mistake defines you. And after every speech, dozens of young people approach him. I also made a mistake. I'm also looking for a chance. You gave me hope. Marcus tells those young people, mistakes come from being human, but second chances are earned through hard work. If you're truly remorseful, if you truly want to change, opportunity exists. But taking advantage of that opportunity is in your hands. When Frank Caprio retired in 2023, there was a special speaker at the ceremony, Dr. Marcus Johnson. Judge Caprio, Marcus said in front of thousands of people, you served for 25 years as a judge, but you didn't just give punishments, you saved lives, and I'm one of those lives. At 19, I made a mistake, and you gave me a second chance. That second chance changed my life. I'm now a doctor. I serve hundreds of children every year. I founded the Second Chance Club, helped thousands of young people, and all of it from that one decision of yours. But you didn't just help me. You changed a law. The First Offense Forgiveness Program is now implemented statewide. Thousands of young people are keeping their scholarships, protecting their futures, and all of it from your rebellion. Marcus approached Frank, and in his hand was a gift, a framed photo. Young Marcus, 19 years old, in the courtroom with Frank. Below, text, Second Chances Save Lives, Marcus Johnson, MD. Frank looked at that photo and remembered that scared 19-year-old, and now saw the confident 27-year-old doctor, and understood. This is why being a judge is a privilege. Marcus, Frank said, you're my pride, but not just you, every Marcus out there, every young person who makes a mistake, every person seeking a second chance. They're why I'm a judge, not to punish, to save. That night, sitting at home, Frank watched television. On the news, Marcus's story. Former defendant, now doctor, inspires thousands of young people. And in the comments, my son also got a second chance, now an engineer. Frank Caprio, real hero, second chances heal society. And Marcus, he's now in Boston, at Children's Hospital, on a 12-hour shift. Healing children, giving families hope. Every time he enters a patient's room, in his pocket is a small photo, at 19, in the courtroom, with Frank Caprio. And on every difficult day, he looks at that photo and remembers. A mistake doesn't define me. I learned from that mistake, and now I serve others. Because that mistake wasn't just a mistake. It was a turning point. It was a learning moment. It was the beginning of a second chance. And Frank Caprio that day didn't just close a file. He opened a door. The door of second chances. The door of hope. The door of the future. Marcus's story is the story of hundreds of thousands of young people. Every day, a young person makes a mistake. But every day, there's a chance to change, to learn, to be better. Frank Caprio made his choice. Marcus took advantage of his chance. The system changed, society awakened, and the world became a little better place. Now it's your turn. When you see a young person, what will you do? How will you evaluate the mistake? Will you give the second chance? Because every day, there's an opportunity to save a young person, an opportunity to protect a future, an opportunity to change a life. Your turn. What will you choose?